In a small cave. There's a voice deep inside, so what I'm saying is, this black magician's work has no end to its chaos, no character is worse, you know, this voice belongs to the man sitting on the body of a lava. An image of dark men dressed in black, with poison in their hands. Even though we have crazy skills, if we run out of dark energy, it's all for nothing. It will not naturally regenerate itself like the mana of regular mages. I have to regularly harvest it by defeating monsters with dark energy. Obviously replenishing dark energy by using it is never effective, you know. And now a question for you. Manold pointed a finger up and smiled smugly at what he just said. What is the best method for a dark mage to replenish and retain their dark energy? There was no answer to the Minold's question, only the roaring sound of the fire. Minold's face looked a bit uncomfortable, he crossed his arms tightly. Around Manold, there were dozens of thugs. He said in a low voice, but no one answered him. Thump, the sound of the insect's claws digging into the cave's surface. Minold's eyes flashed to speak, at times like these. Why not, the underground dungeon boss replied. Why are you coming out now? I think I'm going to die of boredom. Above Minold's head slowly appeared the figure of a mother lava. Die, the larvae die. The green blood in the larvae's body spread all over the ground. The mother lava screamed, purple fluid shot out from her mouth, her eyes looked towards the Manold as if she wanted to eat her alive. Manold didn't show any signs of fear, he smiled a bit mockingly and asked, that's your answer? Bang, that lava immediately rushed towards Manold. Manold easily blocked it with one hand and said, no, that's wrong. The answer is, defeating the monster with maximum power. The lava's body just fell apart before the absolute power of Manold, Isgard, the pinnacle of dark magic. Manold, 645 days before returning to Earth. Now, he said his name is Kim Min-jun. The man took the glass of water and asked. Manold smiled and replied, yes. He gave Manold a glass of water and said, you wait here, an army from the Hunter Corps will come. Manold took the glass of water and replied, thank you. The other man also took a sip of water and asked, I see you are very enthusiastic. Do you have any special reasons for signing up for the Hunter Corps? Because things are pretty bad these days, a lot of people return to the regular army despite having special abilities. Hearing what the other man said, Manold smiled and replied, yes, I do some business in the dungeon. Suddenly, the man was stunned and couldn't say anything because of what Manold said. Even Manold himself was helpless and didn't know how to explain. After a while, ha ha ha, you're so funny. Manold also laughed ha 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 and asked, right. The man said loudly, what a funny guy, I won't charge you for the hall you destroyed ha ha ha. Manold drank a sip of water thinking to himself, stop laughing old man, I'm not joking. All dungeons that appear in Korea are managed by the military, and the top priority regarding them and monster subjugation clearly belongs to the Hunter Corps. They include highly skilled individuals, where you have the ability to advance regardless of your length of service as long as you prove your abilities, without any limitations. If I join the Hunter Corps I won't be able to enter the dungeons, right? I can clear most of them myself and I'm sure I'll encounter monsters with dark energy again. When that happens with super fast progress, this is purely Minjun's imagination, reality may be different. The thoughts in his head made Manold show his bright white teeth and smile in a devilish way. He put the cup down on the table thinking, I can get 10 stars in 5 years and clear as many dungeons as possible, then the Dungeon Warrior Force can relax and develop the Fourth Awakening. And I will become a high-paid public service hero. Manold touched his chin in satisfaction with the perfect plan he proposed when, knock, knock, knock on the door. The man just knocked on the door and came in. He raised his hand to the right side of his forehead and said, seriously, Hunter Corps Sergeant Lee Sung-ho reported. The male commander then walked up a few steps and pointed at Manold and said, you're finally here, this is the recruitment we reported. The old commander's words made Manold a little suspicious and thought, the battalion commander was talking solemnly to a sergeant. Lee Sung-ho asked, you really have hunter ability? If you have awakened as a hunter, you will be able to open a status window. Please tell me all your statistics. A question arose in Minold's mind, what the hell happened to this person? Are all the Hunter Corps like that? Phew, okay, if they tell me to do something in the army then I have to do it. Manold raised his hand. A blue chip appears. Come to think of it, they also have a status facility in Isgard. I hardly used it at the time because it only gives you the values of stats and abilities. Your ability, I wonder how it got here. Manold touched the image before his eyes. His face could not help but show admiration as he said, status window. His eyes opened wider and wider. Sergeant Lee Sung-ho said, what is it? Tell me what you saw. Minold's face fell. He hesitantly replied, yes. It says there is an error. Sergeant Lee Sung-ho's face turned red, his eyebrows furrowed and he said, hey man, are you kidding me? Somewhere in Gyeonggi-do, Hunter Corps Training Center. Battalion Command Office. In the room, a man put his hands behind him and said, I last saw you in Huachin, so it was about 10 years ago, right? I didn't think I would see you here again. First, why don't you sit down, Hunter Sun Yunseo? The girl that the man called Sun Yunseo had blue eyes and replied, I'm not a hunter yet. Like all the people who have enlisted here, I'm just a rookie. I may take it upon myself to say so, but if you called me here for my father, I do not expect special treatment during my training. The man opposite Sun Yunseo closed his eyes and said, I may have given you the wrong impression, this is a separate problem from men in general. Obviously she wouldn't receive any special treatment during her training, it was like the Hunter Corps was an easy organization. Didn't she already know that from her boss? Why? Yunseo's dark face replied, it's because of me. That man immediately interrupted, such a famous recruit has enlisted, so there's no way I'm not interested in being the training commander here, right? You'll be busy in no time, so I wanted to say a few words of encouragement before that. It wasn't easy choosing to enlist as an ordinary soldier instead of an executive. We always lack people like you on the field. I thank you as a citizen of this country as well as a soldier. Hearing that, Yunseo's red cheeks immediately responded, thanking the commander for his support, and in her heart she immediately thought, oh, I'm so embarrassed. At this moment below, the sound of the car attracted the attention of the commander. He immediately laughed and said, come to think of it, I received a funny report today. You might get a really interesting comrade. Would you like to go with me to meet? This proposal makes Sun Yunseo feel confused. The car carrying Minold stopped at the foot of the tall building. Minold's eyes looked up, his eyes also looked stupid. He thought, oh my god, how much tax money have they poured into this? This facility is no joke. As he walked, Minold's head looked back and forth so much that he was dizzy. Sergeant Lee Sung-ho glanced and said, don't get too excited about recruiting, your joining the Hunter Corps hasn't been decided yet. Because you are a special case, I will personally check on you. If it were not for the decision of the headquarters, I would not have dragged you here and went to Yongchang immediately. When all the tests are completed and you are confirmed as a liar, be ready to immediately enlist in the military police. Minold asked, yes, what is the test? Knock, knock. Sergeant Lee Sung-ho used his hand to knock on the red stone slab behind him and said, here. If you manage to move this even an inch, you'll pass. I'll give you 10 minutes, the sergeant finished thinking, well, if you have any talent as a hunter, prove it. This mineral is bloodstone, a byproduct created from dungeons. Not only is it extremely dense and heavy for its size, it is also exceptionally tough. At this size it won't even budge by a recruitment name. Minold walked away smiling and said, it's everything. I'm glad the test is so simple. Minold's words made the sergeant startled and turned to look at him. Lee Sung-ho had doubts in his heart. There was no way to check other people's status books. There were always people trying to take advantage of the Hunter Corps with mediocre abilities. He jumped 5 meters high right off the platform, the error status window. It was all complete nonsense. Standing from the upper floor observing, the old commander said, it was him. He had apparently demonstrated incredible physical abilities in front of the battalion commander at the recruit training center, but the status of his status window showed an error. I have never heard of such a case as the training commander of the Hunter Army. I have high hopes to see how unique this recruit will be. Below, Minold got closer to the bloodstone. He reached out to touch it. This is the stuff that is scattered throughout the dungeons of Isgard, that ridiculously heavy mineral. At this size I can easily push it away. Minold smiled. He held his hand behind him, in a posture that meant he wanted to punch a bloodstone. Sergeant Lee Sung-ho was skeptical. Hunter Sun Yunseo also found it difficult to understand this scene. Minold's fist slowly rushed forward. A layer of storm was released. He thought, who knows, there might even be some dark energy in it. Bang! Crack! Suddenly, the bloodstone broke into small pieces under Minold's punch. It would be bad if there was nothing. All 3 people saw Minjun single-handedly punching and breaking the bloodstone and stood still in surprise. Lee Sung-ho stood looking at the broken bloodstone and thought, bloodstone. He gritted his teeth and smiled, thinking, this is crazy. He looked at Minjun, he was looking at his hand, and yet, Sung-ho thought, what a weird guy. Minjun looked at the bloodstone after breaking it and thought, there's nothing inside. After entering the army for training, soldiers must physically train by jogging and climbing mountains, just like marching. Soldier number 121 named Na Min-hyuk was sweating profusely as he ran. Just breathing heavily. The soldiers running behind were no less competitive. Everyone was panting, sweating like a stream. Minjun of course had to run too. In-hyuk was panting while running and thinking, something is wrong. At first he joined the Hunter Army. Before joining the Hunter Army, I know training will not be simple, because you will participate in real combat as soon as the training ends. You'll train like crazy for 4 weeks, like carrying sandbags from day 1 and climbing 6,000 steps uphill. And as if that wasn't enough, the teacher continuously urged while checking the completion time. The teacher of the Sergeant Hunter Corps Training Center was Lee Sung-ho, also known as the Evil Teacher. It's something everyone looks forward to. With such a rough method of physical training, you can only increase your stats a little. But that's what I think. In-hyuk looked at Minjun in panic. But what the hell happened to that bastard? He wondered. We are the problem. Minjun ran as fast as the wind, without breaking a sweat, as if movement were fun. Minjun ran like the wind gently passing through the stairs. He thought, his body felt very light. If I still had all my magic power, I would definitely fly. The hellish training of the Hunter Corps seems to be great, and compared to the tattered clothes in Isgard, the uniform is exactly my preferred style. The food here is also truly overwhelming. And most of all, after the schedule ends, instead of taking turns on night duty, you will have free time. They said there's a PC room inside the facility that's on par with the outside configuration, and as long as you don't sneak out, they won't bother after completing the schedule. I thought they'd use any magic power. There's something left to escape from here if you don't like it. They give you practice and good food, pay you well, and give you game time. Minjun smiled happily and ran to the top of the mountain. He shouted excitedly, the Hunter Corps is the best, ha ha ha. The soldiers running behind stood still and looked at him running and said, he's running faster, how is that possible? It's really unbelievable. I don't think so. No, don't talk to me. Lee Sung-ho stood on the top of the mountain when he heard the sound of footsteps and reflexively turned to look. Turning around to see Minjun running like a god of war up to the destination, he panicked and said, what the hell? Minjun took his last step up the last step. Then he casually asked himself, that's it. Sung-ho looked at him and asked himself, Kim Minjun. Lee Sung-ho held a stopwatch in his hand. Who the hell was that guy? It usually took about an hour for new recruits. But he finished. Minjun leisurely looked at the scene and laughed with pleasure. The view from here was amazing. Minjun turned around to look at Sung-ho and smiled evilly. He came closer and looked around Sung-ho and said, did you say we would be rewarded with a ticket out if the completion time was less than 30 minutes? I wonder how much time it took me to complete it. Sung-ho clipped the paper between two fingers and held it out in front of Minjun. Minjun admittedly liked it and said, where should I use it? Sung-ho smiled and then breathed a sigh of relief. He looked down at the stopwatch at 21 minutes and 1 second and thought, had any new recruits ever received a ticket before? But high stats and good physical condition aren't everything. Minjun trains his muscles 1 second, 1 2, 1 2. Sung-ho looks at him and thinks, the most important thing is the ability to react and deal with monsters. I will observe you more closely, Kim Minjun. After climbing the mountain, the soldiers returned to their rooms. Everyone was tired and complained, oh my back, every day is like this, I'm going to die. Na Min-hyuk looked at the stats and said, my stats have increased, my endurance has increased by 1. The young soldier next to him said, wow, congratulations. What are your initial stats? I have to check. The status window. Minjun looked at them and thought, did I hear that right? Are they happy with just 1 point of increased stats? Minjun blushed and thought, when I trained in Isgard, my stats increased by 10 every day. At that time, he was trained harshly. In order to give him stats, he was constantly beaten. His physical resistance naturally increased. 10. The guy next to the bed asked Minjun, you tried to get the ticket, when should you use it? Minjun replied, I'm not sure. The other two also added, I'm jealous of you. I heard the teacher said that before. They said that no one had ever gotten a ticket out from Sergeant Lee. Na Min-hyuk asked, do you often exercise? The guy next to you said, that's unbelievable. Minjun was surprised by those words. He thought, are these people laughing at me? When I was a black magician, people in Isgard didn't want to make eye contact with me because they thought it was a bad omen. Communication, it's not as bad as I thought. My friends are constantly chatting. The PC room is open. Are you planning to go? I don't have the energy to play anymore. Minjun heard his eyes light up and ran away. The PC room was open. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He ran and knocked his teammates away. Quickly going to the computer room, he felt satisfied with his passion when he sat at the table and held the computer mouse. Minjun looked at the ticking clock and thought, since it's 9 o'clock, I should have at least 2 hours of sleep. In Isgard, even 1 hour of sleep is considered a luxury, 2 hours is considered a huge reward. I will dispel my daily fatigue with these games. He plays games like crazy, making people around him ask each other, is he playing League of Legends? Are there still people playing that game? The next days, continuing to practice, Sung-ho took the lead while running and urging, don't increase the distance, maintain the speed. If there are any new recruits who cannot complete 40 kilometers in 2 hours, they will not be given breakfast, clearly. No, all said, yes, sir. After running, Minjun excitedly drank water and boasted that he had reached the maximum level of 10 yesterday. The newbie next to him asked, wow, Kim Minjun, you didn't even sweat a drop. Minjun smiled and said, just going for a walk. The other guy said again. But you really play games all the time and sleep 2 hours to 4 this week. Are you a monster or something? Minjun replied, monster, I was even planning to bring water to share with my dear comrades. I guess you don't need it. Then he poured the water down, causing the other soldier to gasp and say, I just said that you have just monstrous physical strength, sir, my beloved comrade. The other soldiers heard the water and turned around greedily, saying, water, water. Those people surrounded Minjun and opened their mouths to ask for water. Please give us holy water. Minjun gave them water and laughed. You guys are like chicks. The sound of footsteps coming to the front of the podium. He spoke loudly, paying attention. Attracting everyone's attention, he said, the lieutenant is very disappointed in all of you. Even though it is the last training session, you are the worst squad of all, so the lieutenant is very disappointed. Minjun looked at him and thought, why does he refer to himself in the third person? The lieutenant continued, if you guys were deployed to fight after training, I guess half of you would die within a month. Half? You guys think I'm lying? With that kind of mindset, do you think you'll be able to complete the final stage of training, the custom dungeon training? Wait a minute, what is custom dungeon training? Usually the dungeon will disappear after you defeat all the monsters and kill the boss, but sometimes, there are dungeons that still exist. In that case, it will become a transformation dungeon, and change the internal structure every day, and become a great training base, to experience all kinds of different environments in the dungeon. The actual training in the conversion dungeon is custom dungeon training. The new recruits looked at each other and discussed the infamous custom dungeon training. Should we do it now? We're done. The lieutenant looked at them with a smirk and said, they're agitated. Well, they have to maintain this level of tension. It would be good to control new recruits as if they were racing horses. When they need discipline, you don't have to tighten the reins. And when they are stressed, I will comfort them with carrots. Then he said, don't be discouraged. If you are wise, it will be okay. And the person with the highest score will receive a 3-day, 2-night resort ticket. He thought to himself, now is the time to get excited. The crowd looked at him with his words just now. He said loudly, did you hear that? Vacation ticket, 3 days and 2 nights. Don't you want to go out? Doesn't this make your blood boil? He thought, what the hell is wrong with these guys? Do they want to stay here until they die? He tried to convince everyone with that seemingly huge reward, but no one said anything. Only, he saw Minjun's eyes bright and thought, why is there only one person to criticize? Minjun said, that's great. The sky is clear, blue, white clouds drift peacefully, and the view on the high mountain is truly breathtaking. The new soldiers were brought to the dungeon. Everyone was surprised and gradually scared. What? Why is it so big? Minjun calmly scratched his ear. Standing in front of the huge dungeon door, everyone opened their mouths and said, is that a dungeon? The day custom dungeon training begins. One soldier asked, what do they want us to do in there? The guy next to them replied, I think camping. Behind the army camouflage patterned vehicle is coming. The car passed quickly past the two soldiers standing there, creating a cloud of dust that made the two quickly retreat and cough. The other boy looked at it and wondered, what are 2 dots and 5 doing here? That's a military truck weighing 2 dots and 5 tons. Minjun looked over and huffed. The faces of the people behind him seemed scared. Inside the truck, there were bright eyes. Everyone looked scared and said nothing. Were they monsters? Or what was in the truck that night?